Hey everyone, it's Julian, and today we are talking about the full set of Shadowverse's fourth set, the Granblue set, and we got the portal update last night. We got a lot of bronzes and silvers. Most of them are very bad. The bronzes and silvers of the set are very shockingly weak. But I think that's because we are starting to understand this game fundamentally more compared to Shadowverse 1, right? And we are starting to see that it's more similar to Shadowverse 1 than I think a lot of us would like. But that makes us more sort of hard on a lot of these cards that are, fueling our game plan or are just sort of like take two fodder, right? But we're going to talk about every class. I'm going to give you guys my personal, right? This is my opinion. 3 best cards from every class. We're going to rank them 1, 2, 3. I will say I think this set is fairly weak in power level. I would definitely expect the first couple weeks to be filled with the old meta after we get through that first couple day period where people are trying stuff, right? I think once the meta solidifies, I think nothing is really beating Rune right now besides maybe Zoe, which we'll talk about a little bit. And I think outside of the stuff that already beat Rune, like Roach and stuff, right? And then I think Cresthaven will still exist. I think we lost Benison, but there's a lot of really strong cards that won't make up in terms of the exact healing, but I think will make up in terms of the power level of the deck. And we'll talk about that as well. But there is some promise in, I would say, Abyss. I think Abyss has a lot of different deck builds they can do right now with these new cards. And there's always room for some other, interesting builds and decks to come out of these new cards, especially if we end up seeing a maybe potential nerf to the old, classic decks later on this month. Because again, they do a balance, I guess, update or whatever you want to call it every other month. They said sometimes there won't be nerfs or buffs, but so we will see. But I think for now we are kind of expecting, unless something crazy happens, right? Unless we're missing some huge combo or in reality in play, some of these cards are actually better than they seem, right? I think we're definitely expecting sort of the same meta to persist with maybe some upgrades. And but yeah, all right. Let's talk about neutral first. I think the best neutral card in this set, not in the game, in this set is Gran and Jita, 4-drop 3/2 on play. Select the mode to activate, and of course, since it's a mode card, it's going to easily slot into mode Abyss, but it's also a neutral card, so you can play it in a lot of stuff. Skybound Art, evolve this follower, and it's 2 modes you can choose from are deal 5 damage to a random enemy follower and draw 2 cards. I really, really love this card. I'm glad this is a neutral card. I think since they are trying to push this evolve strategy for a lot of the classes this set, it's really important to print these kind of cards that are engines and just really strong just utility options for these evolve decks, right? Because when you're putting in these new cards to fulfill the strategy, you really are taking out a lot of the stuff that you were used to and that made those decks good, right? I think the best example of this is something like Forest. I think Forest has a really interesting path it can go down this set. I think you can either just stay on Roach, or you can maybe, hopefully maybe Tempo Force or something like that ends up being good, maybe even just like Evolve Forest. But I think it's very important to print cards like this when you're pushing these sort of class-wide strategies, so that, you're probably going to have to cut down on some of the card draw, some of the removal to put in some more Evolve cards, and you can slot this right in. It has both effects, and it's going to evolve. I think one of the cool things you can do with this is sort of, it combos really well with Sandalphon in the late game, right? Because you can go play this on 10, say Sandalphon's at like 11, you can kill 2 things, like deal 5 damage to a random enemy follower, and then swing into something, and then the board will be clear for Sandalphon to go 10 face. And overall, though, I think this is just a really, really, really strong card for these evolve strategies, and even just and then like Mode Abyss, right? Because Mode just wants more of these type of cards. I think this is a really strong Mode Abyss card as well. I think this is the best neutral card that we got so far. Or not so far. We see the whole set, right? But yeah, I'd expect this card to see a lot of play. It is, of course, a little understated, but I think that's fine for killing a follower or drawing 2 cards, right? 2 followers specifically, right? So you can kind of make sure you're drawing what you want to draw in some decks if you want to build that way, right? Then we have Sandalphon is number 2 for me. Sandalphon is a 6-drop 7/6, and then he's going to activate in deck at the start of your turn if allied followers have evolved at least 6 times this match. Invoke this card. When this card is invoked, gain his crest, and his crest is countdown 2 at the end of your turn, restore 1 defense to all allies. So you're going to get a little bit of healing if you invoke him. And then his actual card, of course, is a 6-mana 7/6. And on play, he's going to Super Skybound Arc, so that's the 15. Do this 5 times, deal 2 damage to a random enemy. Of course, random enemy can hit the face. So it's very similar to the Darkness over Veilstar Grimnir, which was a very strong card for a very long time. Did he get nerfed? I think he got nerfed at some point. But actually, I think he got nerfed to a 6-drop, I think. I'll have to check that after this video. But I think this card is really good. Again, we're pushing these evolve strategies. A lot of decks are just getting good cards that also auto-evolve, right? And I think this is, for a lot of control decks, right? This is just going to be a free card, right? And you love to draw cards in control decks, right? And then for a lot of these sort of tempo decks, it's going to be a way to end the game and have out-of-hand damage that's not like something like an Odin and gets above that sort of 6 to 7 damage threshold that a lot of these out-of-hand damage cards do right now. And of course, you can combo this with other stuff. One of my go-to in my head combos right now is sort of Forest, and you can go like Kubitan on 4, clear the board, get that 3 damage, and then Sandalphon, send the 10 face, and you deal 13. Of course, the issue is getting to turn 10 and stuff like that. But I do think this card's pretty good. I'd be shocked if this card is like a 3 of in every deck, just because you get it for free eventually. But it is in that weird... I think they got it in a really good position where it's like a card that obviously you want to draw early, but if you don't draw it early, it's still fine because by the time you get 6 evolves, it'll be later in the game and you won't need as many evolves to get it active when you want it to get active, right? So I think it's a pretty good card. Again, I don't think it's a 3 of in every deck, but I do think it's the second best neutral card in this set. Then we have Lyria Sky Destined. I'm so happy they made this card. The original Lyria is one of my favorite cards in Shadowverse 1 of all time, basically. You know I love consistency cards, and we don't really get a lot of tutors like this. Of course, this is a little different, though. So the original Lyria had this exact effect. She was a 2-drop 1/1. She actually gained a barrier on play because barrier was like wasn't a keyword. So this card is just going to have barrier innately. So if you ever res her or whatever, she's going to always have barrier. Enhance 8, draw a follower that costs 7 or more, recover 7 play points. So the original version, though, had this exact text, but it's 7, a follower that costs 7 or more, neutral follower. And that was important because you could build decks where back in the day, it was like you could draw Zeus, you could draw Prince of Cocytus, and what else could you draw? Obviously, it was built for Proto Bahamut, because in GBF she summons these primals and, uses their effect or whatever, right? And Proto Bahamut was printed in this set as well. But I think it's cool that they did this. I am interested. I'd love to hear like why they decided we're not going to do neutral, because I think that'd be an interesting way to prevent some issues this card could have, because it could prevent some issues this card could end up having later on, and it also makes the card a little bit stronger and easier to control, right? Because if it's just neutral followers, that's a way smaller pool that you as the card designer can design around and go, all right, well, we don't want to make this card too good because it can be basically auto-tutored by Lyria. I do wonder if this was sort of the Odin tax, like Odin is really strong, and maybe at one point in the design process, this card said neutral, and then Odin came out and was like, oh, okay, we don't want to be tutoring Odin. But again, you can create a deck, and most decks where you'd want Odin to be tutored, and that's the only option in the pool. You're probably not playing a ton of other 7-drops or higher cards anyway. But overall, I think this card's really strong, especially for this set. I think this is going to see a lot of play in this set. Obviously, the classic, like, playing Distant Dragon to draw all of your late game bodies, but also even for some decks like an Evolve Shadow or Evolve Abyss, right? You're probably only going to be playing like Fediel and Belial and maybe Serb, and any of those cards are really strong. Another really fun combo is in Forest. You can go like play this on 8, get an Olivia, and then Olivia's going to come down and then super evolve something, either this or something else. And especially if you combine it with the UL card, this is going to auto evolve, and you can play Olivia, play another 2-drop, and you get 3 evolves. You know, fun stuff like that. I think this card's really, really good though. We are at a higher power level than this card was, because that was Brigade of the Sky, and that was a very low power. I think when the game came out, we were at a higher power level than Brigade of the Sky, basically, in terms of World Beyond, right? But, so a 2-drop 1/1 barrier is pretty weak, I will say. I don't think that's, like, really good, but I think this is mostly played for basically being a 1-drop 1/1 barrier that draws a 7-drop from your deck. I think this is going to help a lot of decks like Abyss as well that have those consistency issues. But yeah, cool card. I really like it, and I think it's the 3rd best neutral card. A couple other neutral cards. I think Catalina might see play in Wardhaven. That's pretty much it. And then Vern, I think we'll see a lot of play, but I don't think it's as strong or as impactful as these 3 cards. So that is neutral. I think neutral got a pretty good set. Then we move on to Forest. Of course, Forest is basically you need to be really good to be better than Roach, right? Sort of like the Rune issue. And I think, unfortunately, I don't think we got there this set. I really wanted to see a body that drew a card. I've been saying 2-drop 1/2 that draws a card or something like that. Kokoro reprint, like straight up, would be awesome. But anyway, I think this is the best Force card, easily. Comet Drive. Select enemy follower on the field and deal a 4 damage. If there's an evolved allied follower on the field, draw a card. I want to stop down and talk about this a little bit too. Is this is what I'm talking about when I don't like when I talk about like not liking the card design in this game right now. And especially the set design, right? Is we're getting new sets with like brand new archetypes, and they print cards that are strictly better for the archetype than an older card, and sometimes just strictly better than an old card, right? And I think this is the most egregious example we've seen so far. This is just a better version of the 2-drop deal 4 combo 3-draw card. It's just a better version. This is a way easier condition to fulfill. Combo only matters in Roach basically right now. And I think this is just like a way easier condition to fulfill for almost every other Forest deck. And every other Forest deck to pretty much exist outside of combo decks. And then even then, it's like it's still an easier condition, and you still might just play this card instead because you can just Evo something that's already on the board and deal 4 damage, draw a card, right? So personally, I think this is the best card, but I really, really hate this type of design, and we see it a lot. Like I could go through tons of examples of this game, but when you're building a deck, when I'm building a deck, it's really frustrating to feel like, wow, we never even got to use this card. Obviously, the old 2-drop deal 4 was used in a couple decks, right? Especially Zudia. I think this is like immediate slot in that slot for Zudia, right? But there's a lot of these cards that are like really cool designs and really strong on paper. But then you go, oh wait, this set just released a better version of this card, and that card will basically never see play. So Comet Drive, best Force card. I think it's just a pretty easy, basic, just strong card. And yeah, not much to say outside of my issues with the card design with this card. So next, number 2 is UL and Societe. 5 mana, 4/3 on play. Do this 2 times. Deal 4 damage to a random enemy follower. So it's going to come down on 5 and clear some boards, hopefully. And then Super Evolve. Gain the Crest. And the Crest is once on each of your turns when you play a follower, evolve it. So I think this card's pretty strong. I think this card's pretty strong just on its base card. It's like little, more random version of Gravy, right? Same stated as well. Didn't have an evolve effect, but you kind of evolve it now, which is nice, right? In a lot of decks, Gravy you could not really evolve. Super Evolve, though, is the interesting part. So on Super Evolve, you're going to, for 4 turns, you're going to get a free Evolve, and I think that's going to play really well into a Tempo Forest or maybe even a full Evo Forest, where you're trying to get Sandalphon, and you're trying to get Kubiton, and you're trying to get Greninjita online and deal some damage that way. I don't know how good it'll be, but I do think this card is pretty strong, and I could see it find its way into other decks that aren't like full Evo Forest decks, right? So I think UL and Associate are pretty good, but I do think overall Forest is I think this is a huge step down from the Comet Drive, and I do think Forest in general got like a fairly weak set, but yeah. Then we have Alfheimer. So Alfheimer, I think, is a really strong card in the decks that it'll be played, right? But I think it's only really playable in a Tempo Forest deck. But in a Tempo Forest deck, I think that it is going to be one of the key stars, right? So that's why I have it at number 3. I was debating to put it at number 2, but I do think this is a really, really strong card. 2-drop spell, select a mode to activate, and then Super Skybound Art, so that's the 15. Activate all of them instead. So 1 is draw a card and restore 1 defense to your leader. Probably the effect that will not see as much play, or as much, like choosing as the other 2. 2 is the one we really want to be looking at. Give all allied followers on the field +1 attack and rush. And then 3 is give all allied followers on the field +1 health and ward. So giving all of your cards +1 attack is really strong. Also giving them a rush is really nice. And then, of course, the option to ward up and gain health is really interesting as well. But of course, you're going to be using this for a lot of the tempo, fairies and stuff with Storm, hopefully after Arya. But I think overall this card's really, really strong. But again, pretty much only playable in a Tempo Forest deck. So yeah, I think overall Forest is, I wouldn't say a winner for this set, but I do think Comet Drive is a really insane card. So yeah, then we move on to Sword. Sword is pretty interesting. So number 1 I have is Zeta and Beatrix. 4 mana, 3/2 rush. On play, summon another copy of this card. And then on hand 6, you're going to give one of the copies Bane and the other copy Storm. So pretty, good removal early game. And then, of course, it has that scaling into the late game with the Storm and the Bane. I think this is just going to slot into basically every Sword deck. It's just a really strong 4-drop. This game is missing a lot of turn 4 plays that you don't need to evolve, right? I think that's an important, asterisk, right, that you don't need to evolve. And yeah, I think this is going to just be played in every Sword deck, and I think it's a very, very strong card. But it's still just like a little boring, and I wouldn't even say it's like a very it's a weird card. I think at this point in time it's a very strong card, but if it gets like Power Creep next set, I wouldn't be shocked, right? Or if it's just like, well, we don't really need this card anymore next set, I wouldn't be shocked. But I think right now you play it, even in this set, like maybe it's just like, oh, well, there's no room in it or there's no room in Loot Sword for this, so whatever. So I don't know. Kind of back and forth. I do think this is like the number 1 Sword card, though. The next couple, we're going to need to talk about a little bit. So next is Feather. We are on the precipice of some interesting developments that could be happening in Shadowverse, right? I'm going to say this now. I don't think this card is that good. If we come back in a month and, people are like, this guy was an idiot, this card is broken, I wouldn't be shocked. I do think it's the second best Sword card. But yeah, let's talk about it. It's a 3 mana, 5/4 with no effects. We saw a 3 mana 4/3 in Abyss that got printed with a huge downside of hitting yourself, I think, for 2, right? I don't know why they printed this card. We also saw in Shadowverse 1, Cinderella was a 3-mana 4/4 that you had to, it bounced, what did it do? It bounced itself if you didn't have a neutral follower or something like that. So seeing a 5/4, that's a quarter of the opponent's health, right? On 3, with no downside, is interesting. I do think turn 3, if this was like a 2-mana 4/3, I think this would be way more broken. But I think a 3-mana 5/4 is right there where it's like, realistically, you could have some cards that deal with this. I think it's really interesting that like a card like Galleon can't attack and it only has ward and 1 more health compared to this card, right? Like, I wonder if they think like a 3-mana 5/5 that can attack with no ward or whatever is fine. Well, I guess it would be this guy, right? It'd be a 5/4. So I don't know. This is either going to just be the best sword card in the game or like kind of a gimmick. I think even if it's a gimmick though, it's like you're still forcing out so much removal and so much immediate action from your opponent, which is what these type of sword decks want to do. I don't know. I'm very confused. I'm very confused. Normally, if this was set 1, I'd be like, the designers have a plan. They must think this is okay. We're 4 sets in, and I do not have faith in the designers at all anymore. So this card could be broken. This card could be dog shit. I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting, though. And yeah, I don't know. Better pack that removal. I'm glad they're putting more 2-drop deal 4s, right? So Feather is number 2 for me. It could end up being number 1. It could end up being number 0, right? This could be end up being the best card in the entire set. I'd be doubtful of that. But yeah, anyway, Feather is number 2 right now. Then we have number 3. This was a hard one for me because I think a lot of the other sword cards are pretty bad. But I do think Mordred is pretty interesting here. It's a 3-mana 2/1 Storm, so this is like a 1 health less than a Novice Trooper back in the day. And again, that was back in the day. That was back in a long time ago. And we just talked about how like this game started at a higher power level than like Brigade of the Sky. I think I kind of equated it to like Omen of the 10 era, Shadowverse 1, when we started out in Shadowverse Worlds Beyond. So this card, it's like, on its base value, it's like 3-mana 2/1 Storm is like not in unless we're doing full aggro, right? The interesting thing comes up with, we have to think about Super Vols, right? I think that's something that I missed when we talked about Odin the initial time, right? Is that Super Vols are very, very broken in this game, and a lot of the problematic cards have to do with how broken Super Vol is, and anytime something has Storm, you have to respect the fact that they can be Super Volved, right? And when you Super Volve this, you get a free 2/3. Wait, how do I show this? Yes, you get a... Oh, I didn't want to open the whole thing. You get a free 2/3 with Ward when you evolve this. Not even Super Volve this, when you evolve this. Also, Arthur is a playable card, but I don't think you would ever play main deck Arthur, right? I think you're just going, hey, this is a 4/3 or 4/3 or 5/4 if I Super Volve it. Card that gives me a free 2/3 with Ward, a little bit of rally count, right? So I think this card is going to see a little bit of play. I think especially in like a mid-range sword deck. But yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I think if you really start out aggressively, this is pretty good. But is it better than just playing Feather? We'll see. But yeah, Mordred is number 3. Not much to say here, just because I think Sword got a pretty weak, mediocre set, but it didn't need support at all. I think it's one of the sort of problematic classes that we've had in the game so far. I'd say it and Rune are the most classes that need action taken on it soon. So we'll see. So that's Sword. I think overall, Zed and Beatrix are pretty good. Feather could be absurdly broken. And then Mordred, you have to find top 3. So, yeah. Then we move on to Rune. Rune is another set that got not even bad cards, but it's just like D-Shift is Is D-Shift the best card in the game? It's one of the best cards in the game, and the whole combo, the D-Shift Cocytus combo, is one of the most meta-warping combos and things in this game right now. And it's really hard to, like, break through into that 40, card deck unless you're broken. Or unless you serve a really, really nice utility and a very efficient utility, which I think this Alchemical Flare does. But I'm saying all this to say that I think after this card, I don't think any of these other cards are really ever going to see play, unless we see a Cocytus D-Shift nerf. But anyway, Alchemical Flare, 2 mana, deal 4 damage to a follower, gain an Earth Sigil, Skybound Art, deal 2 damage to the enemy leader. Obviously, this card's just absurd in the way Rune is constructed right now, right? Dealing 4 damage and then gaining Earth Sigil for that Norman. Coming down, you can play this on 3, right? Kill something, feed the Earth Sigil, and you're set up for Norman already. I think you're going to be able to cut some of the 2-drops. I will be honest, I haven't seen like a lot of the recent Rune lists, but I'd imagine you cut like the gold 2-drop or any of the other 2-drops you're playing, and you just play Melvi and this now in the 2-drop slots, because I think Alchemical Flare now fills that role of the 2-drops where you wanted to play the 2-drops to contest the board and not get run over. So I think this is going to help with that a lot. And yeah, I think this card is just absurd. And another, sadly, they've just completely designed Rune and Worlds Beyond so badly that they can't ever print Earthright cards that aren't just either garbage or spell boost support. So this card's really strong. And then that's not even to mention like the whole Skybound Art effect where he's just, late game, dealing 2 damage. Yeah, insane card. Then we take like 5 steps down and go into cards that basically probably will not see play, but are strong cards, like just in general. And again, it's like you got to at least respect them or talk about them in case we do see a D-Shift Cocytus nerf. So first is Elmot, 3 mana, 2/1. On play, select the enemy file on the field, remove all abilities from it, and deal 3 damage. So it's basically a silence effect and deal 3 damage. And then Super Evolve, you're going to gain his crest. And his crest is at the start of your turn, deal 1 damage to the enemy leader. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good card. It's a silence effect. I like that it's also deal 3 damage on a body early game. I think that's really strong, especially going first, right? But it's not a spell. It's another card you have to Super Evolve in Rune that's not better than Burgeant. Or Burgeant you don't have to Super Evolve, but it's a card you have to evolve that isn't Burgeant, Norman, or any of the other broken Evo cards, and Angrea, right? So this card will not see play, but I think it's pretty good. Then we have Unleashed. This is the 3rd best Rune card from the set. 4 mana, spell, select a mode to activate, draw a card, deal 4 damage to a random enemy follower, or draw 2 cards, deal 4 damage to 2 random enemy followers, and deal 2 damage to your leader. I'm putting this here just because it's like, a spell that draws a card. You can't ever count those out, but I do think this card is like pretty whatever. I don't think this card is anything to write home about, which is why it's 3rd, and that's kind of telling of how bad this Rune set is. I was debating putting Cagliostro on here as the 3rd, but I just don't see it seeing play in D-Shift Cocytus. I don't think it's good enough, So yeah, unfortunately, Rune is just in a really weird spot where it's one of the best decks. Historically, it's the best deck in the game, like, period, right? History-wise. But it's also, like, just been the same playstyle and the same deck construction since set 1. And you just replace, like, Blazing Destroyer with Norman, and now you're, like, even more of a control deck, right? So, anyway, Rune is kind of a lost cause until we see some nerfs. But yeah. Next is Dragon. Of course, I said Dragon is saved with Zoe. I still believe that. I think that Dragon is a really hard deck to construct because it has a lot of variations you can go down. But I have seen some really interesting Dragon decks in the past. I just always will remember, I think it was the last SVO I did. Or no, it was the SVO is when I got 9th place and then actually got top 8, but I saw, that whole event. I played against someone And he was playing this really interesting dragon deck with the Blade. And it was actually a pretty cool deck. Unfortunately, I was playing Rune. So, there's that. But I think now we can really, I think Dragon really opens up with Zoe because now we have 9 ramps, and this card is really, really strong. Of course, if we hit the double ramp, right, if we hit Dragon Sign into this card, this is going to be a 5/5 going into their turn 4, which is pretty hard to deal with. And, yeah, I think this card is just really strong. It's 5 mana, 5/5. I guess I should read the effect. 5 mana, 5/5. On play, gain 1 max play point. Enhance 10, give this follower Storm. Set your leader's max defense to 1. Give your leader can't take more than 0 damage at a time until the end of your opponent's turn. So, is going to be able to obviously ramp into your big stuff. I think the golden play right now is Dragon Sign into Zoe into Willness. I think that's going to basically win a lot of games for people. And then the question is, how do you build around that? I think is sort of going to be the where the deck building comes in, right? But then you also have this enhance effect that actually plays pretty well into the meta, right? If we think about Rune, right, this stops Rune from doing Kakai's D-Shift. And since you are Dragon, you can kind of if you get an extra turn, you're going to be, that could be like a Genesis Dragon or another big storm damage. And of course, this is going to be 5 damage or even 7 or 8, depending on if you evolve it, right? And then it's going to also stop Belial, right? Which I think will be a force in the meta. I don't know how impactful, but it'll be a force, I think, for sure. So yeah, I think this card is really strong. I think that in terms of impact, I could see this being the most impactful card of the set, just because it's finally what Dragon needed to be a class, right? And now we can finally use a lot of those good Dragon cards. Dragon has good cards, but the way Dragon works, it's just you need ramp, So yeah, Zoe, very, very good card. Easily the 1 for Dragon. Then we have the 2, Izmir. Izmir Frigid Fate, 5 mana, 5/4. If you have 10 max play points, evolve this follower. When this follower evolves, deal 3 damage to all enemy followers. I really, really like this card. I think this card is very strong. It gives me Georgia's vibes from Shadowverse 1. And I think that Dragon needs these board clears in the early game. I'd say mid-game, not early game. Mid-game. To really, bridge that gap between okay, you're skipping a couple turns by ramping, and then you need to get that tempo back from the board, and most of that usually comes from AoE or healing, So I think this card's really strong in that aspect, but then once you're at 10, it's also just a really strong card on 10 because it's a 7/6 with Rush that, probably clears the entire board, and then also fuels some evolve cards for either if you're playing Sandalphon or any of the other, Skybound cards like Gran and Jita, right? I think this card is really, really, really insane. I think this is number 2. Number 3 is Willness. Of course, Willness got a lot of, I wouldn't say hate, but people did not think this card was very good on announcement, and I was in agreement, but if you watch that video, right, I said the fantasy of playing this card and then your opponent has no removal. And then you just win the game, period. You just win the game. Because it's going to be a 10-8 or an 11-9, and you can't swing into it, and it cleared their board, and then it's going to swing in for 10 or 11 the next turn, right? But now it's easier to get that on a turn where they're not going to have hard removal because you can go Dragon Sign Zoe and then play this, right? So that's going into their turn 5. And I think that's really, really strong. And it's also one of those things like Galleon, like we talked about Galleon when she came out, right? It's not the fact that he will die, because there will be situations where he will die, right? It's not like we are all in on this, have to hit double ramp and Willness or our deck sucks. It's the fact that we cleared a board and we made him, our opponent, slow their game plan down to deal with this 10-8 on the board. And then we can continue with our game plan going into our turn 8, right? So, very important to sort of understand is we're not talking about this guy needs to live for this card to be good. We're talking about if this guy lives, we win the game. And if he doesn't live, we still clear the board and force our opponent to slow down and clear this guy. So I think overall, I think this card's really strong now that we have another ramper and that it's not sort of a wild dreamland to get double ramp before this guy comes down. So I think this card is pretty good, and I think it's going to be pretty annoying. Next, we have Blood, or I was going to say Shadow, then I said Blood. I meant Abyss. I'm still doing that. It's 4 sets in, right? Belial. This is the best Abyss card to me. And I've been thinking about this card a lot. I think this is... it's a hard card to really grasp, but I think overall, I think that if we completely remove the whole Skybound art, Super Skybound art effect, I think this card is still really, really strong. So it's a 7 mana, 7/6. On play, deal 10 damage to all other followers. Then Super Skybound art, so that's the 15, gain Crest, Belial, Archangel of Cunning. Super Evolve, advance your Belial Crest by 1. Okay, so that's interesting that it's worded like that. I'm going to, real quick, this is going to be like 30, 45 seconds. I'm going to take a detour real quick because we saw this card printed for Portal, and I was debating putting this card on Portal. I don't remember if I did. No, I did not. I did not. Spoilers for for my Portal listing. But they printed this card, and I was like, wow, 2 mana, 3/1 rush. Increase the Skybound gauges of all your cards in hand by 1. And I wasn't sure if that meant increase as in go from 15 to 14, or increase as in go from 15 to 16, as in that's a debuff. I'm even more confused now because Belial reads... where is Belial? Reads advance? Advance your... oh, wait, no. What the fuck am I talking about? No, I guess this still makes sense. I think I just confused the crap out of myself. Because this is a crest. This is not a Skybound art. But it's still the wording, right? Yeah, so... never mind. That's not. I guess that's not applicable. But I'm still confused about that card, and I feel like they should use the word advance. But anyway, okay. Hopefully that was dumb of me. That was just me, not misreading, but misunderstanding because I still don't understand this card. I mean, there's no Q&A for it either, so we'll see, I guess, when we play. But I thought, like, okay, we got it now, right? But no, we did not get it. We did not get it. Anyway, back to a good card. Belial, 7 mana, 7/6. Fanfare, deal 10 to all your other followers. Super Skybound art, gain his crest. Super Evolve, advance the crest. And then countdown 4. Last words, deal 20 damage to the enemy leader. OTKs, right? Just kills your opponent, unless they have Barrier or unless they're Zoe. So, how good is this card? So, we've seen a lot of Evo cards for Abyss now that I think that it's going to be realistic to get this guy on curve, and if you draw him early, and then also basically get the effect off by probably turn 11, turn 12. But if you don't get his effect, how good is he? I still think he's a crazy cracked card. Because he just clears any board, basically. He clears almost every board in the entire game at 7. And, again, if you get the crest, that's awesome. But I wonder if there's some build we can do where we play him as just a really good control option. And then if we get to the crest, awesome. That's like, awesome. We're going to win the game against, some of the slower decks like Haven or something, right? But most of the time, we're just using him for the 10 damage to all other followers. Think something like Jerry, right? Like, a lot of decks have been playing Jerry to beat some of these really slow decks, right? But I think this is almost like a better version of Jerry, where it's like, in the event we need to go long, then we got Belial, and we're going to be able to, OTK our opponent eventually, and put them on a clock. Or make them have to put up a barrier or Zoe or whatever, right? So I think this card's really strong. If it didn't have the AoE effect, I don't think it'd be that good. But I think since it has this AoE effect, I think it's just a really, really strong card. And I think will be splashed in a bunch of different decks. But I think the full Belial Evolve deck will actually see a good amount of play and could end up being pretty good. Back to Tsubasa, though, real quick. I did just think that Marwyn says increase, like your count of Crest. So I think that this card does debuff your Skybound Arts, which makes no fucking sense at all. In my opinion, I don't understand. This card is not good enough. We're going to talk about it next card. We just got a 2-mana 3/1 rush for Abyss that has no downside, has upside. So I don't know why this would be a debuff, but again, and also it's the deck with puppets, so I don't know. This card's really confusing. Sorry we were on that like little detour, but I thought I cracked the code, and we're still searching. So second best Abyss card is Almeida, Headstrong Miner. 2-mana 3/1 rush with no downside. Enhance 4. Evolve this follower and give it +1/+1. So base side, it's a 2-drop 3/1 with rush. That's really good in basically every deck, right? I mean, back in the day, Sword played Kukulin for eons because it was a 2-mana 2/1 rush with enhance 6, gain Bane, and you can just kill anything, but very similar to Mino, right? But now we have a 3/1 rush with no downside that is also in the class that reses 2-drops all the time. And we'll talk about a card that's going to res as well. I think this is really strong for any control-leaning Abyss deck, right? And I think that's a lot of the decks right now outside of the mid-range, sort of like soup Abyss deck, right? But I think this card's really strong. Even in that deck, I think you'd still play this. I mean, it's a 3/1 with rush. And then on Enhance 4, that's probably going to be your first evolve, right? You're going to evolve this, and it becomes a 6/4 with rush, obviously, because it evolves, right? I think this card's insane, and one of the main reasons why I think Belial could end up being pretty good. So Almeida is my number 2 pick for Abyss. Number 3 is Fediel. Fediel, 7-mana 5/5, on play, Necromancy 6, reanimate 2 and 1, and evolve them. And then at the end of your turn, give all enemy follows on the field -2/-2. A very important thing here is when I first read this card, I thought the give all enemy follows on the field -2/-2 was attached to the fanfare, so you'd only get it one time. Now that I know it's on the main body, I think that makes this card just marginally better. I don't think that it's going to be a niche situation where she lives. And again, it's like we talk about in this game. If something lives, you're so far ahead in the game already, right? So if this thing lives, you probably just win the game. If you get 2 procs of the -2/-2 off, you're probably winning the game. But the way this reads is in some board states, you can just go play this, get your reses, evolve this card, get 3 evolves for Belial, right? Or Sandalphon, depending on how we're building the deck. And then swing this in to something, kill a big body, and then pass, and then clear the rest of the board, and then our 2 rushes, or 2 evolve cards, don't have to do anything. So I think that's really cool. I think this card also has a lot of synergy with bats, right? Because we can res our bats, evolve them, and then heal 3 every time we swing into something. I think also evolving and swinging those little guys in helps with that -2/-2 effect. So I think this card's really good. I think in some aspects, this card is better than Cerberus, right? Cerberus, of course, is really good because she buffs your board as well, like Hector back in the day. But, like we talk about all the time, like, if your board lives, you're so far ahead already that, you're kind of confirming your win rather than this is the thing that is winning me the game, right? So a card like this, also Cerberus is very tied to having to super evolve. She's not amazing unless you can get those reses, and then she's also has some like issues with deck building where it's really hard to play 1-drop cards so that you don't mess up your 1-drop res pool, right? So I don't think that this card will immediately replace Cerberus. I think this card will replace Cerberus in the Evolve decks, right? But I think it's pretty interesting, and I think it's pretty good. And yeah, that's my third best Abyss card. But I do want to talk about a couple honorable mentions, of course. I want to talk about Satyr. She is... what was her name? Was it Dog Detective? She was a late game Shadowverse 1 card, but she was a 3-mana 3/3 that if there's an evolve follower on the field, evolve this follower, allied follower on the field, evolve this follower. But this card has aura. I think this card is really, really, really insane. I love, it's very reminiscent of the old Evolve Blood from back in the day. That was basically my favorite deck of all time. And post nerf Rebirth of Glory. And I think this card's really cool. I think this card's really awesome. I don't think it's as impactful as those 3 that we just talked about, but I think this will see play in a lot of Evo decks, and I think could open up some sort of like tempo Evo Abyss deck where you're just getting all these big stats, right? And then eventually you're either doing Belial or Fedial, big board, build, or you get like Sandalphon involved and deal some damage, right? So I think this card is really, really strong. Of course, this also does just help, removal as well, right? It's a 3-mana, basically deal 5 and fuel your Evo count by 1. So, pretty good card. I like this. And of course, I'm not going to talk about him too much, but I think Nihan, of course, is most likely going to be good. I'm a little like, if he's not good, the reason he would not be good is because he takes a lot of setup. But maybe the setup is worth it. I think in a lot of situations the setup is worth it. But I didn't have him on my top 3 just because he's one of the only cards that takes a lot of setup to be good. And again, we're living in a world where our boards are not living that much, right? So we do need to set him up. But still a very good card. So that is Abyss. I think Abyss definitely got the best card pool, right? Then we move on to Haven. Haven, number 1 best card for Haven, in my opinion, is Galleon. I gassed this card up a lot in my video where I talk about her, so I'm not going to go too into depth, but she's a 3-mana 5/5 ward, can't attack followers or leaders. At the end of your turn, if you've unlocked Super Evolution, evolve a random unevolved allied follower on the field that didn't attack this turn. Again, we talked about this card a lot. I think this is just a really good control tool and a really good ward card, so it's going to be used in Ward Haven. And yeah, I think it's really hard to deal with, and depending on how many cards we get out of our opponent, we kind of won, especially for a control deck, right? So that's kind of how you have to think about it. But I think this is the one, and yeah. Next we have Vera. Again, already talked about this card a lot, but Vera, 8-mana, 6/8, select 2 enemy followers on the field and banish them. Super Skybound Art, that's the 15. Super Evolve this follower, and the ward can't take more than 3 damage at a time. I think this is just the easy replacement for John in a lot of decks, because there were some control decks that were basically using John as an AoE or as a removal instead of the board buff. Obviously, the board buff was really nice in a lot of decks. Probably like Ward Haven, you're probably going to play both of these, right? But in something like Crest Haven or any other future Control Haven decks, probably just going to play this card. Banishing is really strong. This card is going to be really hard to deal with, especially if you hit the Super Skybound Art. And yeah, Vera's just a really, really good card. Then third, we actually have De La Phil's Gleaming Gems. We got a lot of really weak silvers and bronzes for Haven. But the more I think about this card, I think it's pretty good. I think this replaces the, what is it? Quick Shot? The vaccine amulet that's 3 mana, crack it, deal 4 to something, and heal 1. I think this is basically just better than it. I think in a control deck, you can control the random aspect a little easier. And then also there are some builds, right, that are playing Rodeo. And I think this is a way better draw from Rodeo than the vaccine card. I'm blanking on the name, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Because you can option, hey, I cleared the board with Rodeo Super Evolve, so I don't need to do anything else, and I'll just draw some cards. Or there's 2 big things on the board that Rodeo, or there's 3 big things on the board that Rodeo will not be able to deal with on a Super Evolve, so let me crack and destroy it. Or in a situation where it's like, I want a Rodeo to, get a bunch of this value, but there's only like 1 thing on the board. I can get this, crack this, destroy that thing, and not have to use a Super Evolve on Rodeo, right? So, and then all of that to say also just on curve, this is really good because against control decks, or in control deck mirrors, right, you can just draw 2 cards, and then against other decks where you need to stop the bleeding, right, you can just destroy a random enemy follower, and you're probably going to be pretty good. So I think this is 3rd best. It's not flashy, but it's a good card, I think. So that is De La Fleur's Gleaming Gems. Next we have Portal. Again, another class where there's 2 directions. Either it won't be playable, either the class just will be bad, or there's going to be this crazy cool Portal control deck that somehow in a Magic universe beats Rune, right? Or Rune gets nerfed. But there's not a ton of quality here. We talked about Tsubasa already. Really, if Tsubasa slows down your Skybound Art, that card is like, how do you even print that card? In the same set you're printing Almeida. But anyway, 3 mana. This is the best Portal card in my opinion. 3 mana spell, do this 6 times, deal 1 damage to a random enemy follower. Just some board clear early game. Will kill Galleon, right? Will kill Feather as well. Kind of boring, but it's the best thing Portal got, like, on a just base level on paper, right? Next, we have Beelzebub, 9 mana, 9/9. Fan first, select 2 enemy files on the field, remove all abilities from them, and deal them 9 damage. Give the enemy leader, takes 1 damage. Awesome card if you're not passing and they go, cool. Hey, cool card, man. That was such a cool play. Here's Kakaida's D-Shift. Oh, Astaroth's Reckoning. So this is why we really need 3-deck 1 ban. But that ship is like, that ship's just, that, there's legends about that ship sailing off, right? We're way past that. That'll never happen. You got to choose the 2nd best Portal card, right? So, and it is a good card. It's just a bad card in the meta because it's too slow, and they obviously don't like hard control decks that this would support, but they like those control decks that once you're past turn 10 or 11, you just obliterate your opponent. And this is kind of that, but again, those type of decks are not good against Rune and Kakaida's D-Shift. So, I don't know. Got to choose the 2nd one. 3rd is Chaos Legion. His super 6 mana, deal 3 to all enemy followers, or all enemies. Super Skybound Art, that's the 15, deal 6 damage instead. When you're choosing good cards for a class, I mean, if it says it deals damage to face, got to put some respect on it. So yeah, that is Chaos Legion. But yeah, Portal is pretty rough right now. I mean, to be fair, Puppets is pretty good right now. I would have loved to see a Puppet support or 2. Maybe that'll be next set. Maybe next set. Are there any other Puppet characters to get? Oh, we could get, what's her name? Mia? Is that her name? I'm just thinking if they do a Rage Bahamut set, like if we could get Puppet support. But again, I see the makings of like a classic, like Machina. Remember Machina control Portal with Baphomet and stuff? I see the makings of that, but I don't know. Not with D-Shift. Not with D-Shift running around. So that is my 3 best cards from every set. Sorry I went on that like Tsubasa tangent and it was like, oh wait, no, I'm just totally wrong. But we kind of gained some insight, right? Because they use Advance to go down and they use Increase to go up with Marwyn. So this card is like awful, and I don't know why they printed this card with Almeida. But overall, what do I think is the best card in the set? I just want to like look through real quick. I really don't want to say it's Alchemical Flare, but that's what I'm leaning towards. I really do not want to say it's Alchemical Flare, but it's what I'm leaning towards. It's either Alchemical Flare or Zoe. But Alchemical Flare is way easier to see it being good immediately, and like you don't even have to think. Zoe, you have to build a deck. You know, we never we've never had a good dragon deck. How do we build it? You know? Belial's pretty good. I do think Galleon's pretty good. So yeah, that is the set. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. I'm excited to play because I love Granblue. But if you're like how I was a week ago and you're like, I'm tapping out, I would totally understand. Because you kind of have to be a boomer or boomer-minded now to really like not respect. Respect's not the right word, but appreciate Granblue, right? But I do. And Granblue holds a very dear part of my heart. So I will be here for as long as I am having fun with the game. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you're watching this video right now, we might be streaming some fun games. I think I fixed the bitrate issue as well. Hopefully. We're going to test it a little bit. But then tomorrow, of course, the set comes out, and I will be streaming and playing Shadowverse Worlds Beyond. What the hell, right? It's like I've never done that before. So we'll see, we'll see for how long. I'm going to try to start early because I do have something to do later that night. But I will, let everyone know, plan the stream and everything, and hopefully it'll be a fun time. And we'll try to play some of these new decks and new cards. All right. Hope you guys have a good one. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe would be awesome. And see you later. Bye-bye. Let me know what your favorite card is.